Yo, what's up guys, it's Talon. So today I want to show you guys one of, if not the hardest carry champions overall in terms of like carry potential, for mages especially, like in general in mid lane. Orianna, compared to other champions who are maybe a little bit better than her, like Echo and Syndra, has a lot higher like potential 1v9 or 1v9 potential, and really the reason for that is she has more AoE damage compared to a champion like Syndra, who's more single target focused and pretty similar to Echo as well. And she overall has a bit better scaling than both those champions. Those champions scale really well too, but her scaling is a bit better in the really late game, and her just overall damage and her ability to steal objectives, all of these reasons probably make her the best solo carry 1v9 champion right now. I still think that Echo and Syndra are definitely better mid laners overall, and I do think Kassadin is better as well. But when it comes down to just completely 1v9 carrying a game, I think that there's not really a better champion right now than Orianna, and I still think she's a top 5 mid laner in Wild Rift at the moment. And so I want to talk to you guys about playing her. So when it comes to Orianna in lane, level 1, you're generally not going to be able to do a ton because your first ability is not that easy to land. So the main thing you're trying to do is if the enemy walks up for a last hit, you land an easy first ability on them, and you just try to slowly push the wave or keep the wave in a spot where you can easily trade with the enemy. And then once you get your second ability, you can start poking more around your first strike procs, which I will typically go first strike. A lot of people like phase rush, but to me, first strike is going to help me a lot more with the burst damage later. And again, that 1v9 carry potential. So I'm going to be going for first strike. And then you just make these short little trades you can see me making. It's not necessarily about hard winning the lane. It's about getting a small gold lead through things like using your Sweet Tooth to get gold, using your first strike to get gold, and potentially denying the enemy a last hit or two. And then even if the game is going poorly, you're really focused on a pretty selfish play style where you can just get your own gold, focus on getting yourself ahead. And regardless of what goes on in the first 10 to 12 minutes of the game, you're always going to be extremely useful if you're able to hit your death cap on proper item spikes, and your infinity orb on second item is going to allow you to really steal a lot of objectives. So typically for the build, you're going to go Ludens, infinity orb, death cap, crown, and then a situational item like Trident or Leandri's or Morello's or whatever works for the game. You can go Soul Stealer as well for max damage, kind of up to you, right? But you have to get Infinity Orb second. The reason for that is because it allows you to steal objectives so well. There isn't really a better choice than that. And when it comes to the Ludens over Archangels, the reason for that is because in solo queue, for that 1v9 potential, you're going to want that higher early game burst damage to really carry the game, rather than having that kind of late game potential of the Archangels and that extra mana. And if you take proper recall timers, the mana shouldn't be an issue for you. So just keep in mind, you know, if you're really struggling with mana, it's probably because you're doing something wrong in terms of ability usage or recall timers or other things like that. And so we're going to skip through some of the early parts of the game. Typically, again, the main thing is to recall on your mana boots after you crash third or fourth wave, get that little bit of a poke advantage in lane, play consistent, play to really farm and scale, and then the later parts of the game are really where you kind of do a lot. So you can see here, again, I just constantly am poking the Gnar when he goes up for trades, winning the trades, keeping the wave in a good spot where the enemy has to walk up, and I can easily poke them. I'm not making a lot of roams. I don't roam often on this champion, and I don't get a lot of solo kills on this champion. But what I do get is gold leads. Almost every game, I'm going to have a couple hundred, if not more, gold lead on the mid laner. If the mid laner roams, I'm going to crash the wave quickly and punish him for his roams. If he stays in lane, I'm going to use my better poke to deny those last hits. And either way, you're going to get that gold lead. And then I'm going to continue to skip forward because that's really the main, you know, kind of essence of the early game. And I'm not trying to waste your guys' time showing you guys a bunch of boring lane. I'm just going to continue to show you again. We're going to do those things in lane that we spoke about. We're going to push the wave when we're close to an objective and then look for a recall timer right before the objective. We recall, as you see, again, skipping forward a bit. And then we set up once again, we go to the wave, we push that wave, and now we are straight ready for the objective fight. And this is usually going to be the sequence of the early games. Again, you see how I'm 0-0-0. And when the enemy do go for fights like this, my damage is not that high. I'm going to land good ultimates like this, get good poke on them, and I can be useful in fights, but I'm not going to be able to completely carry a fight on my own in the early game. I'm just going to use my champion to get good slows for my second ability, good CC for my ultimate, decent poke and everything like that, and just play for that, you know, again, those first strike procs, as much damage as I can. But if my team's not doing well in the early game, I'm not going to be able to do much. And that's where you can see I'm 0-0. My team is 2-7, not going very well, and the game's going to continue to not go well. But we're going to focus on recalling on our item spikes like the Ludens that we have here, getting the consistent gold, going for those mid waves when we can, and then helping our team afterwards. Because again, our team is on a fight here that's clearly not going to work because the enemy rotated and our support did not. And so instead of over forcing a fight and throwing the game in the early game, we're going to just sit here, maybe poke them if they walk up, but generally focus on this mid prio and getting the gold. Because if you're able to hit 3 items on Orianna, almost anything is winnable. Like, you guys are going to see some objective steals later in the game, and you might be like, oh, but you just showed me a game where you got an objective steal. Ask anyone who has watched my stream in the last couple days. I have stolen countless objectives. Ask anyone who's watched me play Orianna. I have probably secured more objectives than my junglers in most games, honestly. Like, this champion has really good smiting. Like, it's OP smiting, and you can see we are still able to get some, you know, plays there with our Aatrox to at least get an assist and get some fights going. But like, I'm genuinely able to hit so many smites to get so much done. And here even I kind of gave up mid more than I should. I probably should have just focused on mid instead of giving up that turret as well. And you can kind of see how I made a little bit of a mistake there, and the game ends up going a bit worse. But again, if you focus on that gold, you're going to have the damage to smite late game where you can outsmite most junglers, because your overall combo with the ultimate plus second ability is going to do more. If you do first ability, ultimate, second ability, you're going to do more than 800. So you're going to outsmite a lot of champions. Really easy to steal a lot of objectives and completely pop off if you hit your death cap. So again, we're just focused on that consistency, and that's really what I want to kind of get into you guys here. Since the mid turret is dead, now I'm okay with going towards side lane initially, getting gold towards side lane, and then once the enemy push the mid wave, then I go mid. So that's kind of the difference too. If the early game is going really bad and you end up getting pushed in, go for the mid wave afterwards, and my teammate ends up taking it here, so I don't get as much, right? And I'm obviously showing you guys as well a game that went a lot worse than the average game in the early game, because I know generally you guys don't want to see me in a game where I'm stomping 10-0 at the start of the game. So I'm showing you guys one of these bad games as well, that, you know, the early game is kind of rough. But then what do we do again? We use our third ability to go onto our aggressive champion. We get the ultimate onto Hecarim. We help him get the kill, but I don't overchase when they go in 2v4 for no reason. I go right back to the mid wave to consistently focus on my gold. So it's not like I'm not helping my team. I've been a participant in half of the fights we've had. I've provided great value that my teammates wouldn't have gotten these kills without me. But when they start overchasing, I'm not forcing that. Instead, I'm forcing things that matter. Like, I'm getting this turret now. I'm making sure to ward. I have my flash, so I know I can potentially go for this. I'm trying to see if I can get anything right, and then because I worded, I know that it's all right. I can stay here. And then I decide I'm okay with dying. The game's going poorly. I'm going to just die for the turret. But then the Teemo shows up out of nowhere, and so we end up dying without getting the turret. And so say I'd gotten the turret, I'd be completely happy with that result, because dying for the turret, I wouldn't really lose that much. But because we die and we didn't see the Teemo right, kind of unfortunate. And so the game is going very poorly. As you can see, we're down a bunch of gold. We skip back. We're just consistently focusing on these same things. We go back and get that mid turret because the enemy did give it up for us, to us. And then we're just focusing on getting that gold once again, getting that sweet tooth seed jar combo to get that additional fruit. And then here we're just looking to see maybe we can steal something. We end up not stealing it, as you're going to see here. So again, I know I'm skipping through more than normal. That's because I don't think you guys want to watch a 0, 1, and 2 early game for a bunch of, you know, buttons I'm clicking. You want to watch for the macro, and that's why I'm just skipping through telling you guys why I'm doing what I'm doing. And then the interesting part comes later in terms of the fighting, which is generally how Orianna is going to go. You're going to have a lot of early games that go pretty well just because you're winning your lane and maybe the enemy int into you, maybe your teammates make decent plays, right? And those games, you're going to do the same thing I'm doing now. You're just going to be stronger and be able to fight more because you're stronger earlier. But in a game like this where the team's not doing well, you just focus on still getting that gold. And then you're going to find an opportunity like this where maybe the enemy end up going a little too far. You're going to try to land a good ultimate like I do here and get a double kill, you know, get some type of value back. And then that's kind of the time where the game's often going to swing. And the reason that I'm able to do so much damage in this fight is because I've been farming really well. And so I still have, you know, in terms of the pace of the game, I'm relatively, you know, close to the enemy. And so my ultimate, my damage does a bunch there. And you saw that nice double kill when the enemy were about half health. We're just able to one-shot them. The Infinity Orb as well, really helping with that. And now we're really looking in a good spot. I'm 12 minutes in the game and I'm already 10k gold, which is a solid amount of gold. If you're having a better early game because, you know, the game's going better, you're going to be able to get more towards that 11 to 12k gold by this point in the game. But even hitting 10k gold at this point in the game is perfectly acceptable as long as you're able to get towards that death cap by the third dragon. And so again, we're mostly focusing on getting towards that death cap. We go top side to get that gold to get the death cap, recall, and then because the Baron's the only objective up, I'm going for the Baron. I'm pinging my teammates like, hey, they're starting Baron because my jungle's on the wrong side. Jungle kind of makes a dumb play here because he just was on the wrong side of the objective. But I try to land an ult, don't really land a great ultimate, but you can see now because I am hitting my death cap, I'm really strong at this point in the game. And so this fight is not going to go poorly because of all my damage that I have. So I'm going to get a bunch of burst damage, onto the Nautilus there, and then you're going to see the jungle Orianna, which is, again, the enemy obviously choked this one, but generally speaking, you do a bunch of damage to objectives, and so we're able to get a really nice fight there. Look at that burst damage onto the Teemo as well. You can see how much damage I'm doing to everyone in this fight, and this is often what happens. We get another kill onto the Zeri. Shout out to Blitzcrank for that hook. And all of a sudden, the game's not looking too bad. And it's not always going to be an objective steal. Sometimes it's just going to be you win a fight because you're so strong. But you can see how this consistent farm and getting to these proper item spikes, even when my teammates make those silly mistakes, wins us the game. Or at least puts us in a position where we can win the game. And it's really important to squeeze as much gold as possible, because keep in mind, I was 200 gold away from death cap, and then I got that wave and I got death cap. So had I, like right before that fight, so had I ever missed a single point of gold at any point in the game, I wouldn't have had death cap for that fight, and I probably wouldn't have carried the fight in the way that I did. So getting those item spikes, squeezing every amount of gold, being on the waves at proper times, pushing the proper waves, and not giving up turrets, playing around gold bounties, playing around turrets, all these things matter so much for Orianna, and that's why in these later parts of the game, your burst damage is going to be absolutely absurd if you're able to farm properly. But if you're not farming properly on Orianna, then you should play a different champion. Because like other people will tell me, right, well, Talon, you don't roam enough, you don't help the team enough early game, you don't do this or that. Watch me play Jace, and then say that again, right? Because when I'm playing Jace, that's what Jace needs to do. He needs to stomp his lane, he needs to get aggressive prio, and he needs to rotate and spread that lead to the map to snowball the game. And when I'm playing Jace, I do that. But you're not going to do this on Orianna most games. You're going to play for lane dominance, you're going to play selfish, and you're going to play for your own gold, because that's what the champion is strong at. And so if you want to play a different style than the style I'm showing here, then play one of these more aggressive, good, strong early game champions. If you want to play this type of scaling style for really hard carrying later on in the game, play something like Orianna. And then here again, getting a bunch of burst damage. We almost one-shot, I think, the Wukong or the Teemo in the fight there. And then here again, we're just going to use our damage to melt through this Nautilus with our team. And I believe we do end up killing him. We do. And so yeah, just overall, you can kind of see all of this damage that we're able to get. Then we go for this turret because we have the advantage. So we're playing around turrets now. We're consistently pushing our leads, getting as much as possible. And just once our team is kind of overextending, now we want to make sure we back off. We don't want to throw too hard. And so we're going to try to catch the Teemo with our ultimate, but you didn't see me miss that ultimate. Pretend I landed it, just you didn't see anything there. And then we'll just start running away, obviously trying to get a recall off now. Hecarim gets the mid inhib, which is good, so they kind of get distracted there. And it ends up working, and you can see again the burst damage we're able to get onto that Zeri, and she's going to end up dying. And then I will recall, reset, and get ready for the fact that the Baron is now coming soon. And as I'm resetting, I'm going to walk to class because I have class now, and then I'll record the rest of this video after class. Alright, now that I'm done with class, I can finish telling you guys about why Orianna is really good. We're mostly just going to be going over this last, team fight kind of. So obviously, I mean, we just killed 2 people, right? So it's pretty straightforward at this point. We mostly just set up for the Baron, get stuck on a random little wall. But my teammates do end up going really, really aggressive. And a lot of times when these types of things happen, you just need to be really patient because your champion's really good at stalling just through poking people out. So like notice how here I get a bunch of damage onto them. The crown allows me to not get CC'd. The QSS allows me to not get hit by the Nautilus hook. So the itemization really coming in clutch there. And I still have my flash and my cleanse about to come up. But a lot of times you can just stall around objectives in a situation like this because you saw, again, we poke out the Gnar really hard. We poke out their teammates. We have really good zone control. So it's really hard for the enemy to actually walk up in an objective. And now I'm using my ball to zone them to get vision. And the second that the Wukong walks up, immediately we're just going to poke the heck out of him and get him to already like 40% HP. Gnar comes around, we do the exact same thing with Gnar. And so a lot of times around these objectives, even if your teammates do that dumb stuff that they just did, to die and whatever, I'm just able to poke the heck out of these people. They're not really in a good spot. And then I go over the wall so that I can get a really easy ultimate. We end up hitting both of their squishies and completely one-shotting Zeri and nearly killing Teemo as well. And then because I have that crown and I have the stasis, I can be a bit more aggressive positioning-wise here. And then I flash over the wall again into my team. And because we got that pick onto the Zeri, it's really straightforward from here until a bunch of Teemo traps randomly show up and get me 1 HP. So we do have to recall. But again, perfectly fine with being able to recall here because I have that zone control on the objective. So if the enemy do go for the Elder, even if my teammates end up inting for no reason, I'll have really good ability to poke them out. So I'm able to recall. And yeah, pretty straightforward from here. I mean, you see our teammates obviously going pretty deep. So again, a lot of kind of worrying aggression from our team. Team sort of playing over confident, I guess. And so you're going to see, again, you know, same kind of scenario here. We end up also not hitting the Teemo with our ultimate. We were trying to catch him. And so if we did catch him, we would have killed him. But instead, we're going to have to try to zone the people off the Elder now. A lot of times people will over panic when these types of things happen. And so this is why I think it's a perfect game to show you guys. It's a game where I'm carrying, my team's doing a lot of dumb stuff, and even around objectives, they're throwing the game. But instead of just like going in, trying to 1v5 steal, I'm poking them over the wall. I'm playing around my one person who's alive, and then the second that anyone goes really far forward onto me, like the Zeri, we're going to end up getting her 1 HP, and she ends up dying then to the Hecarim. But you're going to see I'm not going to overforce, right? I'm going to try to steal, but then I'm like, oh, they took it, that's fine. Now let me just, you know, make sure I get my items, make sure I do what I can, and try to zone them off the Baron now, because again, I have this zoning control. Even if the enemy have Baron, they can't just end the game automatically. Or if they have Elder, rather. They also need the Baron. They can't just get the Elder. And so I know they're going to Elder, or going to Baron with their Elder. And at this point, I just need to zone, right? Just walking forward, pretty straightforward. Use my ball again for vision. Balls are very good for giving vision. You just... Also using the Sweet Tooth, or the Sea Jar rune, allows me to kind of zone them really easily. And then now we're just looking for a one-shot on any of their squishies. And again, just poking them out here. I have my crown so that Nautilus ultimate doesn't really scare me. And now I'm just going and positioning with my team to try to poke out this Gnar. And we're just generally trying to see what we can do. And then another important thing is to kind of hide your ball a lot of times in fights. You can see a random little Teemo just dies there because he doesn't really notice where my ball is. And a lot of times if you leave the Orianna ball placed on the ground for a little bit, they kind of forget about it. Whereas if you throw it directly at them, usually they're like, oh, well, there's an Orianna ball on my screen. I got to avoid it, right? So that's another important thing. But you see we get 2 more kills there. We're able to once again zone them, even when they had the Elder Dragon. And now we're just waiting until Elder expires, and then we're going to try to force some type of fight, maybe on Baron, or just let our teammates engage and then kind of go from there. But you can see our team has thrown the game like 48 times, and every time we've kind of saved it just through patience, through poke, consistent control, good stealing of the objectives because of the burst damage that Orianna has, all of these types of things. And then proper itemization as well. Having this crown because of how many things they have, like the Nautilus ultimate and whatnot. Having the QSS as well because of Gnar CC, Nautilus CC, everything like that. And then cleanse, of course, as well, right? So there's a lot of ways where they can't really actually get on top of me. And so I have a lot of these things where I can just play patient, stall the game out, and then eventually, now I'm a 5-item Orianna. The enemy walks up, they're going to instantly get one shot if they are, you know, the Zeri or the Teemo. Even the Wukong at this point nearly gets one shot by me, so yeah, basically that. Then again, our teammate makes a nice play to go on to Teemo. I think he ends up killing him there. We get a lot of burst damage onto the Gnar as well. And again, I'm trying to kind of wait with my ball so that they don't know where it is. Unfortunately, the Gnar had Barracks, so I didn't get as much damage as I would have liked. But we still get the damage onto the Wukong there. Again, good positioning here. Still have my flash if I need it. And we pretty much just win the game from there. So you can see pretty straightforward. And then we go and end the game after that fight. This is why Orianna, in my opinion, is the best carry mid laner right now. Not the actual best mid laner. Like, I think Syndra, Echo, Kassadin are all stronger. But she's the best at 1v9ing, like completely solo carrying a game because you can stall these games out so well. You have that insane burst damage on multiple people, unlike these other single target carries, like Echo, like Syndra. And so if you guys are looking for one where you just want to completely 1v9 the games, we've been carrying a lot of games up to like 92 marks now on a lot of Orianna gameplay. So yeah, that's basically all I wanted to talk about in this video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.